Welcome to our deep dive into Raja Yoga. We're taking a close look at Swami Vivekananda's book, Raja Yoga. Um, you're interested in how, like the practical side of it, right? How it works as a life philosophy.
Yeah, and the book really delivers on that. It doesn't just get lost in, mystical ideas. It lays out a real path for understanding yourself better and reaching higher states of consciousness.
Right, right. And I think it's really interesting how Vivekananda connects Raja Yoga back to this Samkhya philosophy.
Yeah.
He's basically saying there's this clear division between our true selves, what's called Purusha, and everything else going on around us.
That's the core of Samkhya. It's this idea that your true self, your pure consciousness, isn't limited by the material world. Think of it like watching a movie. The movie is the world, always changing, full of drama, but you, the watcher, you stay the same.
I see, I see. Okay, so how does that idea of being separate but still experiencing the world, how does that actually work in our day-to-day lives?
That's where the three gunas come in. Sattva, rajas, and tamas. They're like the three, um, I guess you could say, forces that shape how we experience things, both mentally and physically. It's like ingredients in a recipe.
Okay.
Sattva is purity, wisdom, feeling peaceful. Then you have rajas, which is all about action, passion. And then there's tamas, which is, that feeling of being stuck or unmotivated.
So it's like we're not one specific type, but kind of a mix of these three.
Exactly. We all have all three gunas within us, and they're always like interacting and shifting. Think about your own, how you feel at different times. Waking up feeling inspired and refreshed, that's sattva. Then you hit that afternoon slump. You can't focus. That's tamas taking over.
Makes sense.
And those times when you're super energized, got to get things done, that's rajas in action.
I see. Yeah. So is the goal to be like totally sattvic all the time?
It's more about cultivating sattva, not by getting rid of the other gunas, but by understanding them. When you recognize tamas or rajas is taking over, you can choose to do things that bring you back to a more balanced, clear state.
All right, and I'm guessing that's where the eight limbs of Raja Yoga come in, right? They seem to be a big part of this whole philosophy.
Yeah, they're like, think of them as steps on a staircase that leads to higher states of consciousness. And just like any staircase, it starts with a strong foundation, which is the yamas and niyamas. They're the ethical guidelines, the morals that form the base of this practice.
But it's not just about being, a good person, right? There's got to be more to it than that.
Oh, absolutely. The yamas are all about how we act in the world. Nonviolence, honesty, not stealing, using your energy responsibly, and non-attachment, all active stuff. Then you have the niyamas, which are more about our inner world, things like purity, contentment, self-discipline, studying yourself, and surrendering to something bigger than yourself.
So yamas are outward and niyamas are inward.
Exactly. They work together to create a more harmonious state of being. It's like you can't really progress on this path without first laying down this ethical groundwork.
Like you can't build a house without a good foundation.
Right. Perfect analogy. And as we move up these stairs of the eight limbs, the next step is asana, which is what most people think of when they hear yoga, the physical postures.
Ah, so that's where the poses come in.
Yeah, but it's not just about being flexible. In Raja Yoga, asana is about training your body to be steady, comfortable, so it can hold the stillness and focus you need for the, deeper practices.
Like creating a solid base for the mind to work from.
Exactly. It's not about twisting yourself into a pretzel, but about really being aware of your body and how it connects to your mind.
So by mastering asana, we prep ourselves for the next level, which is pranayama. And I've always been fascinated by prana, this idea of a life force flowing through us.
Pranayama is often translated as like breath control, but it's way more than that. It's about understanding and regulating the flow of prana, which Vivekananda actually compares to like electricity.
Oh, interesting.
Just like electricity powers a light bulb. Prana is the energy behind everything we do, even our thoughts.
So pranayama is like learning how to harness and direct that energy.
It's about becoming aware of this subtle energy inside us and then learning how to control it through certain breathing techniques. And as you go deeper into pranayama, you realize how much it affects every part of you.
Wow, okay. So we've got these first four limbs. It sounds like they're really setting us up for something, for what comes next on this path.
We're building the internal structure, the mental and physical strength to go deeper into ourselves. And that's where we'll pick up in the next part of our deep dive. All right, so we've laid the groundwork with the first four limbs of Raja Yoga, and now we're ready to really move inward towards these deeper states of consciousness. This is where the real transformation starts to happen.
Okay, so mastering those first four, The yamas, niyamas, asana, and pranayama, that's all setting us up for something even more profound.
Exactly. Think of it like this. You built the foundation, and now it's time to, actually build the house, the structure that'll house your true self. And that construction, it begins with the fifth limb, Pratyahara.
Pratyahara, right? That's about withdrawing the senses, isn't it? Like closing yourself off from the world.
It's a little more subtle than that. It's not about literally shutting things out, but training your attention to go inwards. Imagine a spotlight. Usually it's pointed out, illuminating the world around us. Pratyahara is about slowly turning that spotlight inward to shine on your own mind.
So instead of always being focused on the external, we start to pay more attention to our internal world.
Yeah, and that internal world, it's not just thoughts and emotions, but also these deeper impressions, the samskaras that are kind of hidden beneath the surface.
The samskaras, those are like almost like grooves in the mind, right? Created by our past experiences.
Think of them as seeds that are planted in the subconscious. Every thought, every action, every experience, it leaves an imprint, a samskara. And they can be positive or negative. And they all influence how we see the world and react to it.
So they're kind of like our default programming, right? The patterns that keep us reacting in predictable ways.
Exactly. And one of the goals of Raja Yoga is to become aware of these samskaras, to understand how they're shaping our thoughts and behaviors.
Okay, but how do we do that? How do we bring those subconscious things to the surface?
That's where pratyahara, the practice of withdrawing the senses, really comes in. By reducing all the distractions from the outside world, we create the space for those deeper impressions to come up. It's like calming the surface of a lake so you can see what's lying at the bottom.
So Pratyahara sets the stage for deeper self-reflection, for understanding ourselves better.
And once we've created that internal stillness, we're ready for the sixth limb, Dharana, which is concentration.
Concentration.
Yeah.
That sounds simple enough, but I bet it's harder than it seems.
Our minds, they're like wild monkeys, right? Swinging from thought to thought. Dharana is about training that monkey to sit still, to focus on a single point. It could be an object, a mantra, even your own breath.
So it's not about emptying your mind completely, but rather choosing one thing to focus on and learning to hold your attention there.
Exactly. And as you practice Dharana, you begin to understand how your mind works. You see its tendencies, how it wants to wander and get distracted. It's like training a muscle. The more you do it, the stronger your concentration gets.
And that stronger concentration then leads to Dhyana, the seventh limb, which is meditation, right?
Dharana is kind of the culmination of all the previous limbs.
Yeah.
You've laid the ethical groundwork. You've purified your body and mind, mastered your energy, withdrawn your senses, and honed your concentration. Now you're ready to go into a state of deep absorption.
It sounds like everything's been leading up to this point.
In Dhyana, the mind becomes so focused that the line between you, the meditator, and the object of meditation, it starts to blur. You enter a state of profound stillness, clarity, and this kind of expanded awareness. You begin to glimpse the true nature of yourself beyond the limitations of the ego.
That's pretty amazing. But also, it sounds really challenging. Is it even possible to reach that kind of mental stillness in, our world today?
It is. It takes dedication, patience, and a willingness to, let go of our attachment to thoughts, to distractions. But it's not about achieving some mystical state. It's about understanding how your mind works and learning to be more aware.
Okay, so we've gone from the foundations to the deep inner work of Pratyahara, Dharana, and Dhyana. What comes next? What's at the top of this staircase?
The eighth and final limb of Raja Yoga Samadhi. It's the ultimate goal, the peak of this whole path.
Samadhi. I've always heard it described as a state of enlightenment, of bliss.
Samadhi is a state of superconsciousness where the boundaries between you, the act of meditating, and the object of meditation, they completely disappear. It's a state of unity, of merging with the absolute.
Wow, that's almost impossible to even imagine.
Words can't really capture what samadhi is. You have to experience it directly through, dedicated practice.
So achieving samadhi is like reaching the top of the mountain.
You could say that, but the journey doesn't have to stop there. In fact, the real journey of self-discovery might just be starting.
Okay. Before we get to that, you mentioned earlier that siddhis, or supernatural powers, could manifest as a result of these advanced practices. What exactly are those, and how do they fit into the big picture?
Siddhis are extraordinary abilities that can develop as a yogi gains mastery over, prana, the subtle forces of nature, things like telepathy, clairvoyance, even control over the elements.
Superpowers.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. So anyone who practices Raja Yoga will eventually develop these abilities.
It's not that simple. Siddhis are real, but they're not the goal of Raja Yoga. They can actually become a distraction, a detour on the path to liberation.
How can superpowers be a distraction? Wouldn't they make life easier?
Imagine you suddenly had the ability to read minds. It might seem exciting at first, but it could easily become an obsession. You might get so caught up in this new power that you lose sight of the real purpose of your practice.
So it's like getting distracted by shiny objects.
Exactly. A true yogi sees cities as like a side effect, not the main point. The focus is on self-realization, on understanding your true nature as pure consciousness.
Okay, so cities are cool, but not the main point. Got it. But this whole concept of achieving liberation, it's still kind of abstract to me. Liberation from what exactly?
That's a great question, and it's really at the heart of Raja Yoga. Basically, liberation means freedom from suffering.
But suffering is just part of life, isn't it? We all go through loss, disappointment, pain.
True, but the type of suffering we're talking about here goes deeper than that. It's the suffering that comes from identifying with the ego, with our limited sense of self. It's the suffering that comes from clinging to desires, to things, to aversions.
So liberation is about freeing ourselves from those limiting beliefs and attachments.
It's about recognizing that our true nature isn't bound by those things. It's about experiencing the freedom and bliss that comes from knowing yourself as pure consciousness, as Purusha.
It's like stepping out of a cage that we didn't even know we were in.
I like that. And the practices of Raja Yoga, from the Yamas and Niyamas to the depths of Samadhi, are the tools that help us unlock that cage and step into our true freedom.
This is all incredibly fascinating, but I have to be honest, it's a lot to take in. Like, how do we even begin to apply these concepts to our everyday lives?
That's where the guidance of a teacher, a guru, becomes so valuable.
Okay, let's talk about that. The book really emphasizes having a guru on this path. Why is that so important?
The guru isn't just a teacher who gives you information. They've walked this path themselves. They've faced the challenges, and they've come out transformed. They can offer personalized guidance, helping you navigate the subtleties of the practice and avoid potential pitfalls.
So it's like having a mentor, someone who can help you translate this ancient wisdom into practical steps you can take.
Exactly. The guru can help you see your own blind spots, the some scars that are holding you back, and guide you toward practices that can help you break free. They can offer support and encouragement when things get tough, which they will.
Yeah, I can see why having that kind of support would be so beneficial, especially since these are such deep internal practices.
The guru acts as a mirror, reflecting back your true potential, helping you see yourself more clearly. They provide a safe space for you to explore the depths of your own consciousness.
So finding a guru is essential if you really want to pursue Raja Yoga.
It's highly recommended. Of course, not everyone has access to a qualified teacher, but there are other authentic resources out there that can provide guidance. Books, online courses, even just communities of like-minded people can offer support and direction.
Like this deep dive, it's definitely giving me a much deeper understanding of all this.
And remember, knowledge is just the first step. The real transformation happens when you start to put these teachings into practice, to really live them.
Okay, so where do we go from here? We've explored the 8 limbs, the cities, the idea of liberation. What's the one key takeaway you'd want our listener to walk away with?
That Raja Yoga isn't just a philosophy or a set of practices. It's a path of self-discovery, a journey inward to your true nature. And the beautiful thing is, it's available to everyone. You don't need any special qualifications or abilities. All you need is a sincere desire to know yourself, to experience the freedom and bliss that are at the core of your being.
That's beautifully said. Now, before we wrap up, I have one more question. We talked about how Raja Yoga encourages us to cultivate sattva. But how does that play out in everyday life? Like, what does it look like to make choices that are aligned with that sattvic quality?
That's a great question. It's where the rubber meets the road. Cultivating sattva isn't about becoming some detached, emotionless being. It's about bringing awareness, balance, and clarity to everything you do.
So how do we do that? How do we bring that awareness into our routine, our interactions, our thoughts?
It starts with being mindful of the choices you're making throughout the day. What are you feeding your body? What are you feeding your mind? What kind of energy are you bringing to your interactions?
So making conscious choices that nourish us, support our well-being.
Exactly. Choosing fresh, nourishing foods, creating a peaceful space in your home, surrounding yourself with positive people. These are all sattvic choices, and it extends to your thoughts too.
So paying attention to the quality of our thoughts,
Hmm.
noticing those negative patterns and choosing to shift our focus to something more positive.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the power of your mind and choosing to use that power to cultivate peace, joy, and clarity.
This is making me think about those 10 mantras we talked about earlier, those subtle elements emanating from everything. Are you saying that by cultivating sattva, we're also influencing the energy we're putting out into the world?
Absolutely. Everything is interconnected. The choices you make, the energy you cultivate, it all ripples outward, impacting not just you, but the people around you.
So by making sattva choices, we're not just benefiting ourselves, but we're also contributing to a more harmonious, peaceful world.
That's the beauty of it. When you cultivate sattva within yourself, it naturally radiates outward, creating a ripple effect of positivity and well-being.
I really like that idea. It's starting to paint a pretty inspiring picture of how Raja Yoga can actually be applied in our lives. It's not just about some distant state of enlightenment, but about living with more awareness, purpose, and joy right now.
That's the essence of it. Raja Yoga is a path of transformation, not just for ourselves, but for the world around us.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. We've covered so much, from the ethical foundations of Raja Yoga to this idea of Tan Matras and the power of Samadhi.
It's been a pleasure diving into these concepts with you.
Before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, I'm curious to get your thoughts on something. We talked about the role of the guru, the importance of finding a teacher. But what happens when you reach a certain level of mastery? Does the need for a teacher eventually fade away?
That's a fascinating question, and there's no one-size-fits-all answer. The relationship between guru and disciple is complex, it evolves. In some cases, the guru might remain a constant presence throughout the disciple's life, offering guidance and support even as they progress.
So the role changes, but their presence is still important.
In other cases, the guru might eventually step back, letting the disciple walk their own path with the wisdom and tools they've been given.
It's like the guru is a scaffold that supports the building while it's being constructed. But once the building is complete, you can remove the scaffold.
Love that analogy. Ultimately, the path of Raja Yoga is a journey of self-discovery. It's about finding your own inner compass, your own inner teacher.
So the ultimate goal is to become your own guru.
In a sense, yeah, to cultivate that inner wisdom and guidance that leads you to your true nature.
That's a lot to think about. This idea that we all have the potential to access that inner wisdom is pretty powerful.
And that's the power of Raja Yoga. It empowers you to become the master of your own mind, the architect of your own destiny.
Now, before we move to the final part of our deep dive, I want to address something that I'm sure is on our listeners' mind. We've talked a lot about the philosophy of Raja Yoga, the ideas of liberation and self-realization. But what about the practical benefits for our modern lives? How does this ancient wisdom actually translate into something tangible?
That's a key question, and it's where Raja Yoga really shines. The ultimate goal might be liberation, but the path itself is filled with practical benefits that can transform how you experience life right now.
So it's not just about some future state of enlightenment, but about living a more fulfilling and meaningful life in the present.
Exactly. Even just scratching the surface of the practices of Raja Yoga can have a huge impact on your physical, mental, and emotional well-being.
For example,
Take asana, the physical postures. It's not just stretching and getting stronger. It's about cultivating awareness of your body, learning to listen to it, and developing a sense of grounding and stability.
and those benefits carry over into everyday life.
Absolutely. When you're grounded and centered in your body, you're less likely to get swept away by stress, by the chaos of the world. You move through life with more grace.
And pranayama, the breath control. How does that affect us day to day?
Pranayama is like this bridge between the body and the mind. By regulating your breath, you calm your nervous system, reduce anxiety, and improve your focus.
Like a built-in stress management tool?
You got it. And the more you practice pranayama, the more aware you become of the connection between your breath, your thoughts, and your emotions. You start to understand how to use your breath to regulate your internal state, to create peace and calm no matter what's happening around you.
That's so valuable, especially in today's world, where things are so fast-paced and often overwhelming.
And it doesn't stop there. The yamas and niyamas, those ethical guidelines, those fundamental principles, they have a huge impact on our daily lives too.
So practicing nonviolence, honesty, not stealing, those things aren't just about being a good person, but they actually help us live a more harmonious and fulfilling life.
Exactly. When you align your life with those principles, you create integrity and authenticity, you build trust in your relationships, you feel a deeper sense of purpose.
So Raja Yoga isn't just some esoteric thing for spiritual seekers. It's something that can benefit anyone.
It's a path that empowers you to live a more conscious, fulfilling, and joyful life.
This has been so eye-opening. I'm really starting to see the depth of Raja Yoga and its potential. It's not about achieving some distant goal, but about transforming ourselves from the inside out, right here, right now.
That's the heart of it. It's about awakening to your true potential, to all the possibilities that are already within you.
Now, before we move on to the last part of our deep dive, I want to touch on one more important thing, Kundalini.
Ah, Kundalini. It's powerful, but often misunderstood.
I've heard it described as this, like, dormant energy coiled at the base of the spine. Can you break down what it is and how it relates to Raja Yoga?
Kundalini is often depicted as a serpent coiled at the base of the spine. It's a potent energy that lies dormant within us. And it's not just physical, it's a spiritual force that, when awakened, can lead to profound transformation and enlightenment.
So it's like a hidden source of power waiting to be unleashed.
In a way, yes. The practices of Raja Yoga, especially pranayama and meditation, can help to awaken and direct this Kundalini energy. As Kundalini rises through the energy channels in the body, it activates these chakras, or energy centers, leading to greater awareness, spiritual insights, and ultimately a state of unity with the divine.
That sounds intense. Is awakening Kundalini something we should actively be trying to do?
Awakening Kundalini is powerful, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. It's not something you should try to force or rush.
So it's not like a switch you could just flip on.
Exactly. It's a gradual unfolding, a process of purification and refinement that happens naturally as you progress on the path of Raja Yoga. Trying to force it can actually create imbalances and even lead to physical or psychological problems.
So it's more about creating the right conditions for Kundalini to awaken naturally as we purify our minds and bodies through the practices of Raja Yoga.
Exactly. As you cultivate inner stillness, clarity, and balance through the 8 limbs, Kundalini will naturally start to stir and rise, leading to a gradual unfolding of your spiritual potential.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've covered a lot in this part of our deep dive.
Yeah.
The deeper practices, the concept of Samadhi, the potential pitfalls of seeking siddhis, and the importance of finding a guru. Now, before we move to the final part, I want to come back to something we touched on earlier, this idea of Raja Yoga as a practical path for modern living.
It's easy to get lost in the esoteric side of things, but the real beauty is how Raja Yoga applies to everyday life. The principles and practices we've been talking about can be woven into your daily routine, and they can really transform how you experience the world and how you interact with others.
So it's not about retreating from the world, but about bringing the wisdom of Raja Yoga into the heart of our lives.
Exactly. It's like you're not just practicing Raja Yoga on your meditation cushion, you're practicing it in your relationships, at work, in the way you handle the ups and downs of life.
Okay, so how do we make that transition? From theory to practice, how do we actually embody these teachings in our day-to-day lives?
It starts with small, consistent steps. Don't try to change everything overnight. Focus on bringing 1 or 2 practices into your daily routine.
Do you give us some examples?
Start simple. Set aside 5 minutes each morning for mindful breathing. Find a comfortable seat, close your eyes, and just observe the rhythm of your breath.
That sounds doable. What else?
Throughout the day, pay attention to your actions and how you interact with people. Notice how you react in different situations. Are you responding with kindness and compassion, or are you getting angry and frustrated?
So becoming more mindful of those automatic reactions and choosing to respond more consciously.
You got it. And don't get discouraged if you find yourself slipping back into old patterns. It's all part of the process. Every time you catch yourself reacting unconsciously, it's a chance to learn and grow.
Okay, that makes it feel less overwhelming, more like a gradual process of unfolding. What are some other ways we can bring Raja Yoga into our lives?
Make a conscious effort to bring positive qualities into your thoughts, your words, and your actions. Practice things like gratitude, kindness, forgiveness. Surround yourself with people who inspire you, people who support your growth.
So create a supportive environment for our practice.
Exactly. And remember, Raja Yoga isn't meant to be a solitary thing. Connecting with like-minded people can give you encouragement, accountability, a sense of community.
This has been such a valuable conversation. I'm starting to see how Raja Yoga can really become part of our lives, enriching our relationships, our work, our overall well-being.
It's a path that allows you to live with more awareness, more purpose, and more joy.
Now, as we get ready to move to the last part of our deep dive, I want to talk about something I know is on a lot of people's minds when they explore these spiritual teachings. Enlightenment.
Enlightenment. It's often seen as the ultimate goal, the peak of all spiritual practice. But what does it actually mean?
That's the big question, right? I've heard it described as bliss, liberation, oneness with the divine, but it's still hard to grasp.
It is. Enlightenment isn't a destination you reach. It's a process of awakening, of unfolding into who you really are. It's about realizing that you're not separate from the divine, that you're already whole and complete.
So it's not about becoming something new, but about recognizing something that's already there inside us.
Exactly. And the practices of Raja Yoga, the emphasis on self-awareness, purification, mastery of the mind, they're all tools that help us to peel back the layers of illusion and see that truth.
Okay, so we're not trying to become enlightened, but to realize that we're already enlightened.
Exactly. And as you go deeper into this path, you start to experience glimpses of that truth, moments of profound peace, clarity, connection, and those glimpses give you a taste of what's possible that keep you going.
So enlightenment isn't a fixed state, but a continuous process of awakening and unfolding.
Exactly. And it's a unique journey for everyone. There's no single right way to do it.
So we each have to find our own path, our own way of connecting to that truth.
And that's what makes it so beautiful. The path of Raja Yoga provides the framework, the tools, the practices. But it's up to each of us to discover how to walk that path.
That's something to think about. This idea that enlightenment is not something we have to achieve, but something we can simply awaken to is really liberating.
And that's the essence of Raja Yoga. It's a path to freedom, to the realization of your true nature as limitless awareness, as pure consciousness.
This whole conversation has been amazing. We've explored the foundations of Raja Yoga, the ethical guidelines, the practices, the goal of enlightenment.
It's been a pleasure diving deep into these concepts with you.
Now, as we get ready to wrap up our deep dive, I want to leave our listener with one last question. If Raja Yoga is a path to liberation, to freedom from suffering, what does that freedom actually look like? How does it show up in our everyday lives?
That's a beautiful question, and it's one that we each have to answer for ourselves, but I can share a few thoughts based on what I've learned and
I'd
experienced.
love to hear them.
Freedom in Raja Yoga isn't about running away from the world or denying our human experience. It's about living with more awareness, more compassion, more joy, even when things are tough, when there's uncertainty.
So it's not about becoming detached, but about embracing life fully, with all its good and bad.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between acceptance and action, between letting go and making an effort. It's about realizing that we're not just victims of circumstance, but we actually have the power to create our reality.
So freedom in Raja Yoga is about empowerment, about taking responsibility for our lives and choosing to live with purpose.
Yes. It's about aligning our actions with what we truly value, cultivating inner peace, and contributing to the well-being of ourselves and others.
That's a really inspiring vision of what's possible.
Hmm.
It's like Raja Yoga gives us the tools to create a life of greater freedom, joy, and fulfillment.
And the journey itself is as rewarding as the destination.
I'm excited to keep exploring these teachings and to see how they play out in my own life.
And remember, you're not alone in this. There are so many others who are on this path, looking to awaken to their full potential.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insights today. It's been an honor to have you as our guide on this deep dive into Raja Yoga.
The honor was all mine.
And to our listener, thank you for joining us. We hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and maybe even inspired you to start your own journey of self-discovery. Remember, the path of Raja Yoga is there for anyone who wants to take it. All it takes is a willingness to explore, to learn, and to grow. And until next time, keep diving deep. So we spent quite a bit of time exploring the different facets of Raja Yoga, from the Yamas and Niyamas to the profound concept of Samadhi. But now I want to turn the focus to you, our listener. What aspects of Raja Yoga resonate most deeply with you? What practices or insights feel particularly relevant to your life right now?
It's really fascinating how these ancient teachings can still feel so relevant and powerful in our modern lives. And I think each person will naturally gravitate towards different elements of Raja Yoga, depending on their own needs and what they're searching for.
Yeah, for sure. I'm finding myself drawn to the idea that true freedom comes from really understanding how our minds work. It's like Vivekananda is saying that we're not our thoughts, we're the awareness that's observing them.
He uses a really powerful analogy in the book, comparing the mind to a lake. He talks about the surface of the lake being constantly in motion with waves, and those waves represent our thoughts, emotions, and sensations. And those are all influenced by the gunas, remember?
Right, our minds are rarely still, they're always active.
Exactly. But beneath those waves, deep down at the bottom of the lake, there's a profound stillness. That stillness represents our true nature, the Purusha, pure consciousness, completely undisturbed by all that turbulence on the surface.
That's a beautiful image. So the practices of Raja Yoga, they're like tools that allow us to dive down beneath those surface waves and experience that stillness.
Precisely. The yamas and niyamas, they help to calm the surface, to create a foundation of ethical conduct and self-discipline. Then you have asana and pranayama, which give us techniques to dive deeper, to regulate our energy and train our focus. And as we move through Pratyahara, Dharana, and Dhyana, we're gradually descending through the layers of the mind until we reached that profound stillness of Samadhi.
It sounds like a very systematic approach to quieting the mind and discovering our true essence.
Mhm.
But you mentioned earlier that there are all these impressions, these samskaras that are kind of hidden beneath the surface. How do those affect us?
Think of the samskaras like seeds that are planted in the soil of the subconscious mind. Every single experience we have, every thought, every action, it leaves an imprint, a samskara. Some of these are positive, some are negative, but they all influence how we perceive the world around us and how we react to things.
So they're like our default programming, the patterns that keep us trapped in old habits and beliefs that might not be serving us anymore.
They can be, but they're not permanent and they can change. The practices of Raja Yoga, especially self-reflection, help us become aware of these samskaras and bring them to the surface.
And once we're aware of them, what can we do?
Awareness is the first step. Once we see those patterns, we can start making conscious choices, cultivating new positive samskaras that are in line with who we want to be.
So it's not about erasing the past, but about understanding how it's affecting us now and then choosing to create a different future.
Exactly. And Raja Yoga gives us the tools to do that. With consistent practice, we can purify our minds, loosen the hold of those negative samskaras, and create a more positive reality.
That's pretty powerful. It's like Raja Yoga gives us the ability to rewrite our own mental programming.
And this is where the role of the guru, a skilled teacher, becomes really important. A guru can guide us through this process of self-discovery and help us break free from those patterns that are holding us back.
So the guru acts like a spiritual mentor, someone who can offer guidance and support as we move towards greater freedom and self-awareness.
Right. They offer the wisdom, encouragement, and accountability that we often need to navigate the challenges of this path. They help us stay focused on our goals and remind us of our true nature, especially when we get caught up in all the distractions of life.
This deep dive has been so eye-opening. It really feels like Raja Yoga is a roadmap to understanding the mind, harnessing its power, and ultimately finding liberation.
And remember, this isn't just theoretical, it's practical. These principles of ethical conduct, self-discipline, and mental control, they can change how we interact with the world and how we experience everything around us.
It feels like Raja Yoga isn't just about achieving some far-off state of enlightenment, but about living a more fulfilling life right now in this moment.
You got it. It's about cultivating inner peace, clarity, and purpose no matter what's going on externally. And remember, the journey of self-discovery, it doesn't end when you reach samadhi or even enlightenment. It's a lifelong process of unfolding, of expanding our awareness and realizing our full potential.
This conversation has been so valuable. I feel like I have a much deeper understanding of Raja Yoga now, and of myself too.
And that's the real beauty of this path. It leads us back to ourselves, to the source of wisdom and power that we all have within.
As we wrap up our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. The teachings of Raja Yoga, even though they're ancient, are just as relevant and important today. They offer a path to self-discovery, transformation, and liberation that is timeless.
And what's amazing is that this path is open to everyone. It doesn't matter what your background is, what you believe, or what you've experienced. You can start this journey of self-exploration and discover your true potential.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Raja Yoga. We hope you're inspired to explore these teachings further and discover the incredible power that lies within you. Until next time, keep diving deep.